Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Always a good thing. Hello, everybody. This is a spontaneous meeting with my good friend Jay Dignam, and he's probably trying to get on somewhere along the line. Jay, just press the right button, mate, and you'll be fine. So let me just see what's going on and stream this on my mobile phone. Let me see now. La 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 da dee 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 dee. There we are. Joseph Delaney is live now. Good heavens. So if I do that like that, Joanne, hello, nice to see you. Ria, behave yourself now, Ria. No jokes or rude comments, please. There we are. Right, I think I've done that. Let's see. Yes, that seems to be working. Okay, iPhone has entered the waiting room for this meeting. We better let iPhone in then, hadn't we? Why are you upside down? I mean, I know that's your normal position, but why can't I hear you? You might be a physical genius, but technically you're totally useless. Right.
Hear me now?
I can hear you, but you're sideways on.
Hold the phone, Joe.
There we are.
How's that? Wait there. Let me figure out how I'm going to do this.
Use your ingenuity.
3, 2, 1. Here we go. How's that?
How's that? Sounds like a cricket term for the summer. It's great, mate. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yes, I'm plodding along. Thank you. Just, you know, one breath at a time. Not understanding at all what's going on in this strange world, but just getting on with it, you know.
What happened with going back to uni?
Everything's online at the moment. The universities will be opening. Well, the university I work for, Edge Hill University, they're opening up again at the end of September, October, I think. Obviously, with all the social distancing requirements in place and everything else.
Are you finding it?
I find it quite difficult, to be honest with you, because I like an audience. I am a performer, and I like an interactive feedback type session. And it's
well, I'll be honest, Joe. The reason for this video was based on that little call we had.
I can't remember what call we had, because if it was yesterday, it's gone too far away from my mind. Because living a day at a time, yesterday is history and tomorrow is a mystery. So I
find it a little bit soul destroying, all this sort of like online stuff.
Well, yeah, and especially if you're a physical therapist, it's very, very difficult to treat people, you know, when you're trying to help them to improve their physical body when you can't touch them, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more.
Massage therapists and physical therapists and exercise therapists must be finding it really difficult, you know.
Yeah. So, should we get to it?
That's up to you, because I've set this up on my thing, but you're really going to take over now and talk about the 4th emergency service, which I think is very important. And can I just say, my feeling is, from what I've observed recently in the last 3 months, that people have either gone one of two ways. They've either sat down and done nothing and just basically sat in their neurotic armchairs. This is no criticism. It's purely objective observation. So some people have not been able. They've just sat there and waited till it's over. And other people have reflected and they've gone deeper and they've realized just how important health is and what they can do about it. So I think that there's a two split. And I think that those people who haven't done anything yet will eventually fall in line, for want of a better expression, and start to work with it. So those people who have picked up, if you like, a new lease of life and a new understanding, my hope is, and it can only be a hope, is that when we get back to reasonable and normality, whatever that means, that they don't fall back into old habits. I think that that's really important, you know.
Yeah. Well, I want to sort of tap into your sort of clinical mind now, not the sort of Gandalf the spiritual mind. I want to tap into the medical side of things. Now, I don't want to be a cliche and talk about the COVID-19, but it has been an inspiration for this sort of video. I think the whole fitness scene, the physical therapy scene is going to boom like we've never seen it boom before. But it's been so diluted with poor academics or lack of experience that the industry is so big. For COVID-19 to have had a massive impact on that percent of people that were, you know, had the pathological conditions, obesity, poor health, poor respiratory, for the industry to be so big, I think that what's going to happen is there's going to be like a fourth emergency service. The personal trainers, the sports medical practitioners, the physical therapists, it's going to be like a separate emergency service that offloads all these acute issues from the NHS so they can deal with the main issues, and people are going to have to start taking control of their health. And I think there's going to be sort of 4 formats: that nutrition, you know, musculoskeletal injuries, pathological issues such as diabetes, COPD, diverticulitis, Crohn's, you know, and neural. I think these conditions are now going to be moved over to the gymnasium settings and the clinical settings outside of the hospital to offload the NHS. And again, I don't want to be a cliche and say it's all COVID-19, but you know, obesity was a massive killer with this virus, because, you know, obviously respiratory problems, you can't ventilate someone as well with obesity, you know, COPD, diabetes, all these conditions that were mismanaged, which may have had a better success rate in the hospital if we'd have paid a little bit more attention to it and not just thrown drugs at it.
I agree, and I think my view that it's all about balance. Everything's about balance, and you know, don't you be saying my Gandalf head, because my Gandalf head is part of me, because you know I have a 4-quadrant approach, or if you like a 4 intelligence approach. There's physical intelligence, PI. There's emotional intelligence. There's intellectual intelligence, if you like, the IQ. You know, and then the spiritual intelligence. Now, I know that you always try and get away from the spiritual side of things, but
no.
To me, spirituality is about the essential person. I think what people have done is they've been in a situation where they've mindfully turned their eyes inwards and began to realize that maybe there's bigger priorities than what's going on in this crazy outside world that we live in. And it's about balance. Of course, we've got to live in the outside world, but I feel that people need to pay more attention now, mindfully, to what's really important, what's their essential selves, what motivates them from inside, not some sort of extrinsic motivation where somebody is rah in them and all that. Now, I know that you do that, but I also know that you know how to inspire and set a light, if you like, to people's internal motivation.
Yeah.
So, you know, can I just say something, and I'll let you speak, because both of us like speaking, and I'm getting in before you do, right? I think what's also happened is, you mentioned musculoskeletal problems. A lot of people have gone off and they've exercised too hard, too quickly. And, and you see this a lot. You see that people start to get pain very quickly after exercising, and that immediately demotivates them, and then they stop doing. So it needs somebody who's experienced and somebody who can lead them step by step into a more balanced approach to exercises. Because I watch some of your videos, I know some people who are training with you, and I know that you start them off from where they are rather than from some sort of ideal.
A big thing I learned from you, Joe: you never fired a cannon from a canoe. That was one of the quotes you used to say. So you've got to build the foundation. But let's not just, you know, jump the gun here and say that exercise and nutrition is going to be the cure for everything. For example, these nerve impingements, you know very well, being in your medical sort of industry, that viruses and bacteria, if we go up into the neck, we could assess, you know, C3, C4, C5, C6 for thoracic outlet syndrome. Nothing could be there, and eventually down the line it may be viral and it may be bacterial that are causing these neural impingements. So I'm not saying that, you know, exercise and nutrition is going to be the savior. I'm saying that it's like looking at it from a tree. there's a lot of therapists and trainers out there, and people look at dealing with the branches instead of dealing with the tree trunk. And we might find that if we just deal with the tree trunk, some of these branches will fall away and we'll only have one or two, and we go, that's the issue. This is the issue. So I want to talk about, firstly, something you brought up on one of your blogs, which was nutrition, which is low energy state. Now, we know that things like rapidly dividing cells, skin, hair, GI, respiratory, renal, endometrium, endothelium, breast, sperm, stem cells, cuticles, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, they all require energy. And if they don't get energy, then we're going to get complications then. Brain, primary active transport, which is a massive one. So people are now cutting away from sodium. So sodium, potassium, ATPase to get solvents in and out of cells, neural transduction. All of these things require sustenance. But there's this big thing at the minute where we're cutting away from everything. We're decreasing calories all the time instead of just exercising more. This is going to have an impact on your body. We're going to decrease salt. Salt didn't, the only reason salt got a bad press was those two scientists in France in the 1950s who gave salt to their patients and their heart rate went up. That's not a bad thing, because osmotically, the salt's going to drag a little bit of water into the veins, and the sodium's then going to pass over into the cells, and it'll level itself out. There'll be a homeostasis, but we need salt. To take away salt should be criminal to the body. Things like fat now, everything is fat-free, but we know cholesterol heals cells. We know without cholesterol, you're going to die. Dementia is through the absolute roof this day and age. I firmly believe that's because we're taking away with statins, the ability to absorb fats. Hormonally, brain, 25% of the brain works on sugar. So if we start decreasing sugar because we think that sugar is bad, carbohydrates are bad, we're going to get lethargy, mental dullness, tiredness, sugar not going into the muscular cells, shortness of breath, exercise intolerance. So looking at nutrition as the foundation, I believe is a big step in improving our health, is improving that tree trunk. And I think, Joe, the main one is for me is I always talk about this with clients, this sodium, primary active transport, I feel is a massive one in terms of allowing that sustenance to go into the cells and that neural transduction. If we haven't got a base like that, how can we go and exercise? And a lot of people will be on a low calorie, low vitamins and trace elements, and then try and exercise. And it does have a negative impact because they're already deteriorated. And then they can look at exercise as, I can't do that. When really what they need to do is give the body a little bit of sustenance, build things up, and then start to apply stress to change and allow the body to adapt.
I agree, mate. And I think, we live in a highly toxic, highly obesogenic environment. But in the end, what comes down to is personal choice. It comes down to personal choice. But the point about it is, if we've been toxic for years, we need to go through a simple detoxification process. Highly refined sugars are poison to the body. There's no doubt about that. And most people know that refined sugar is as addictive as cocaine. It's so difficult to give up. So people like us, we need to help people nutritionally, because we're qualified to do this, on a sort of detoxification program, and then lead them into some sort of dietary ingestion program that suits their metabolism. And you know yourself that metabolism is personal to the individual.
Absolutely.
And to go back to my mystical roots, in the Vedic texts and the Hindu texts, there are basically 3 body types, and we can use this for Sheldon's body types as well. So there's a scientific basis behind this. But you're either a mesomorph, right, an ectomorph or an endomorph, and we need to help people to understand that there's a certain dietary regime that they'll take which will suit their personal metabolism. This is coming back to the fore now. The gut microbiome axis is so important now, but it's been dismissed for a long, long time. I'm completely and utterly convinced that things like obesity and type 2 diabetes are lifestyle choices that have gone wrong because of stress and our inability to understand what stress is And then this leads to discomfort and emotional disturbance, which then leads to comfort-seeking behaviors. If we can help people and put a package together that makes them or helps them to understand how their body is responding to the signals that we're sending it and the feelings that come with this, then they'll be much more body aware and they'll be able to make healthier choices. Your go.
Well, touching on the microbiome and stress. Now, we both know that stress, adrenaline, will decrease the ability, the gut switches off, basically, we can't absorb. And that microbiome, there's a certain microorganism that produces the mucus around the gut to protect it from the stuff that we put in the mouth. And if we go to heart health now, which is a big one, I know you like talking about the heart, and we talk about cholesterol. Now, here's my take from what I've been researching. LDL and HDL is basically transportation for cholesterol. They aren't good and they aren't bad. They're transportation systems for cholesterol. Now, if we don't get sustenance in and that microbiome can't produce that mucous membrane to protect us, our gut produces what we call endotoxins, which then enter the bloodstream. And as LDL is taking that cholesterol to the site that cell needs repair, if there's too much LDL, HDL is like a big airplane, comes in, gets them all together, takes them back to the liver, processed easily. They don't stick. They're not bad, okay? But what can happen is if we have a broken down mucous membrane around the GI tract, what can happen is those endotoxins can get into the bloodstream, and they've got to go somewhere, and they can attach to those LDLs that are heading back to the liver. But that particle then, that small dense particle, it can't go back into the liver. So our body tries to attack it, and it starts to release things that cover it and try and eat it, and it builds up to what we call a small dense particle, and that's what sticks. So where we say, lifestyle choices, it's not all about what we eat. It's about if we're stressed out, if we're putting good stuff into our system and we can absorb that sustenance, this can create issues. So mind and body and health choices, they all intertwine as a system. It's all one system. We can't have one without the other. We can't have a healthy body will make a healthy mind. A healthy mind will make a healthy lifestyle. It's a circle.
Well, I think mind, body, mind, it's one word, body, mind, it's connected word, they're not separate bits. I also need mind, body, soul and spirit because there's deeper aspects to this. But for your benefit, we'll keep the soul and the spirit out of this conversation.
Bring it in, Joe.
And but my whole thing is, this is about mindfulness, not mindlessness, because most of the time, and this is me, I was there myself, right? I'm much more mindful about the choices I make. I drink filtered water now. We eat organic stuff. We're fortunate to be able to get that. I'm really, really careful about what I'm ingesting these days. And it's changed the way I feel totally. All those inflammatory bowel problems that I used to get have all disappeared now, because I think that I've reset it. Somebody's mentioned here, Limbury's mentioned, talk about fasting. What do I feel about fasting? I personally tried fasting and it worked a treat for me, right? But what do you do for yourself? I don't know. You need to work with a professional who understands these things to find out what is suitable for you. I'm not for or against anything, right? But we need to be cautious about taking on board really, really sort of out of the box type things. I'm not saying that they don't work, but I think that there are more gentle approaches. Just to go back to inflammatory products as well, you're quite right. But I also think, and we've talked about this before, the vagus nerve is so important for transmitting information from the chemical environment of the gut back to the brain and back again. That's the vagus nerve. Now, the vagus nerve, as you know, is attached to the rest and the digest response. Stress brings in with it curtails the vagal activity and increases the sympathetic nervous system activity. That's what the problem is. Basically, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems have been in conflict with one another, and they need to go to some sort of matrimonial counselor and go to some session here where they need to get back together and to start collaborating and cooperating for the benefit of the health of the individual. I brought that technical stuff in because I know that there's some people here who are listening to this who'll understand that. But once again, Jay, it's all about resetting the balance. And how do you reset the balance? Through mindful breathing, right? And through enhancing and increasing your body awareness and your self-awareness. I'll stop in a second. How do you do it? You stop doing everything that you're doing and you take a step back and you allow yourself to sink into relaxation, and you basically ask yourself, please show me what works for me. And Jay, that's what saved my life, because there's an intelligence within all of us that if you listen to it, call it your ancient intelligence, call it your body intelligence, call it your heart intelligence, call it what don't say that word, Joe, call it what you like. But if you actually tune in deep into yourself, it will guide you into what are the best choices for you. Over to you, son. It's like playing tennis, this. Clink. Advantage, Dr. Joey D.
Well, you know, we've gone on about nutrition there. We've gone on about rapidly dividing cells, and all these cells need sustenance, and without them, they create problems, and they create pathologies, and they create issues within the organs and the systems. And we've talked about, if we're stressed out, then the nervous system is going to shut off the absorption of these nutrients, and that creates a problem. But we know we've got to look after ourselves, and it starts with sustenance. But then there's a lot of people out there during this time that had back issues and knee problems, and where they couldn't get out and move. And we both know that movement is medicine. Inflammation goes through the lymphatic system. It does not go back into the bloodstream, okay? And the lymphatic system does not have a heartbeat. It requires peristalsis, okay? You need to move to allow that fluid, if you will, to be pumped back out. Otherwise, you're stuck with all this toxicity in your body. People go, on my back, okay? What people don't understand is sustenance, because the back is like Kevlar, 80 interconnected ligaments of Kevlar, so tough, that regenerates every 16 damn months. You can't have a dislodged disc. That's not how it works. It's regenerated every 16 months, but it requires nutrition. So how do you get nutrition into a disc that's like 80 layers of Kevlar? Imbibition. You need movement to allow that sustenance to get into the discs, okay, to allow you to move. In anything that's really tough, we need movement to allow the fluid, to allow the movement of sustenance into the cell. So even if it was a walk, it would allow the sustenance we're then putting into our food to help regenerate. I hope I'm saying the right words here, to then help you move. It's okay to be in pain, but taking pills and anti-inflammatories and stopping cyclooxygenase A and all this stuff, it's not going to get you any further in terms of rehabilitation. So once that sustenance is in, you then need to move to get rid of that toxic inflammatory waste, through the lymphatic system, and to get those joints sustenized, if that's a word, so that you can then progress further down the line. And I feel that these musculoskeletal problems are not going to be dealt with the way they should in a hospital.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the exercise physiotherapists in the hospitals are overloaded, right? They used to do massage. They don't do much massage anymore. There needs to be some sort of fourth emergency service where the overspill, right, comes to people like yourself or myself, although I don't do any one-to-one stuff anymore because I'm too busy with the other stuff. But the whole point about it is the heart, as we start to exercise more, and as we start to understand movement and flexibility is important, the heart seems to respond to this. The heart sends out all sorts of signals. It sends out pressure signals back to the head. It also sends out an electromagnetic wave, which impacts upon the way that our brain waves work. So if we can change the way our heart works, it will change the way our mind works. Neuroscientifically, electrical signals that go from the pressure receptors in the carotid arteries go back into the brain. And what actually happens then, Jay, and you might know this, but you might do, it increases the amount of something called BDNF, right? And that's brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's basically the substrate that creates new neural cells in our brain. Now, if we have a positive attitude when we're moving, then the BDNF increases and the neural pathways which carry with them new habits are formed. So rather than give any energy to the old habits, the way that you do that is not to fight against them, but it's to create new neural pathways through a positive attitude. So exercising because you've got to and because it's for your health, that's sort of, it doesn't work. It's almost an obstruction. But doing it because you feel that you're worth it and you feel that your health and your well-being is something that now you want to focus on first and foremost, that, in my view, in my experience and in my opinion, is the way to go forward. It's not by fighting the old paradigm. It's by creating something that's new and healthy and more creative. There we are. Over to you. Dink.
Well, talking about the pathways there, Joe, and staying on that subject of muscular, you know, a lot of people go out and say, oh, I can't do that, and I can't do this exercise, and I find it hard to move, and their movement is all, I'm going to say the word flaccid. It's all over the place. And once we send those pathways, talent isn't born, it's created. When those new neural pathways start firing and we carry on moving, even if it's bad movement to begin with, as we carry that on, fat is wrapped around the nerves, what we call myelination, and the transduction then becomes faster. And that's like starting off doing piano, and carrying on and carrying on and carrying on. You're not learning it any better, you know it. But what's happened is the transduction, the myelination to the fingers becomes a lot better. So the transduction is faster. It's like having, I mean, when we first got internet, we had to dial that thing up and it'd be, okay? And now we've got fiber optic, you know, broadband, which is like, zoom. Myelination is like fiber optic broadband. Yeah. So that doing it positively and being able to have consistency doing the exercise, as you go down the line, you're going to feel better because you're moving a lot better. You're in tune from your mind to your body. And a lot of people get disorientated and sort of give it up because they're just not connected to the body. They're not feeling good from the body because the body isn't connected and that transduction isn't fast. But with time and a positive attitude, you need to go out and use it. It almost feels godly once you start moving. I know you're a runner, that toxic mile. And then once the nerves start kicking in and then boom, it's euphoric. It's like you're running on clouds and everything just feels good. But if you watch someone that goes into running from, you know, just doing their first mile they've never ran, it's hard to watch. Yeah. You know, you almost feel sorry for them because they're really struggling. And it's not that they're unfit. It's they're dragging their body that they're not connected with in a positive way and a myelinated way. Back to you.
It's called coherence, mate. It's called mind-body coherence or heart-brain coherence. And it's funny you should say that because one of your clients, whose name I will not mention, was a bit concerned that when she starts, it takes her a long time. She feels that she's constrained, her breathing's constricted and all that. And that's perfectly normal because there is a warm-up period. That's why athletes warm up before they... So it's not to expect to be able to run from a sprint start immediately when you're still not warmed up. And by warmed up, I don't really mean temperature. I mean that the blood is actually oxygenating all the cells of the body and coming away from the visceral organs and the digestive organs back to the musculoskeletal system, you know. And so my suggestion is to people as well is if you're just starting off and if it's a long time since you've done anything, is stretch. I mean, yoga, to me, yoga is like a preliminary thing for this. You can stretch your hips, you can stretch your legs, you can get ready, and then you can gently start off. And then suddenly what happens with me is after about 20 minutes, I'm still getting and waiting for the sort of rhythm to come in. And then suddenly it's like all my body systems then go boom, and I'm open then, and I'm in the flow of things, you know. So it's not to have such high expectations, but to be gradual. And I know people in this day and age, they want everything now sorted within a week. It doesn't work like that, Jay. 90 days seems to be the time when old habits are kicked out and new healthier habits can replace them. And people think, well, 90 days, that's 3 months. I haven't got that time. When they came to me, you know, I used to say, well, you'll have to go and work with somebody else because this is the system that I use here, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a gradual move, and to allow your physiology. The other thing is, and it's rest and recuperation is so important. Getting 7 to 8 hours sleep a night is important, because that's the time when your body reorganizes itself, it gets rest, it recuperates, and it recalibrates at the same time. So exercising vigorously every single day is probably counterproductive, I would say. I don't know what you feel about that.
Well, two things, Joe. You know, I feel the 90-day things. Do you know how hard it is to put 10 stone on to get fat? It's not an easy thing to do. To eat in excess of 3,600 calories over your metabolic rate is hard. Yeah. It's not an easy thing getting fat. And you didn't get fat in 12 days or 90 days. It took a long goddamn time. So don't tell me you ain't got the time to have 90 days of trying to do something new, because it ain't easy putting on 10 stone. To have cartilaginous damage, listen, unless Mike Tyson is digging at your knees every day or you're in a car crash, it ain't easy to wear away your knee. Those things are designed for 200 years plus. It's not easy. You've got to be really lazy mechanically to damage your back and your knees. You know, these issues people complain about the most. It takes a lot of hard work to damage your body. It really does. So to say that you haven't got the time, excuse my French, is full of shit. Okay, to get to the point of being obese, to get to the point of having a pathology that is created through poor health, takes a lot of hard work and determination. It's not an easy thing to do unless you have had direct trauma, you know, to the system. It's hard to do. So, you know, again, but that requires what you said. It requires the mind to be in a good place to then go out and do this, you know, this 90-day body transformation. And, you know, even to have that, I find even to have that mentality where you go, I haven't got the time. Shush, stop. You're being toxic. You're still thinking in that toxic manner that has got you in this position. To be obese, let's say, and I'm not picking on obesity here, but to be obese and then to say, I haven't got the time, you're thinking still like an obese person. And once you've lost that weight, that I haven't got the time would never be in your vocab ever again. You wouldn't think like that ever again. It would be completely different, but you're still thinking in that toxic, negative, untrained, unhealthy, unsustained way, which got you in this position in the first place. So, you know, the motivation of having good people around you, not just trainers, not just a fourth emergency service, but having, you know, friends and family that say, listen, you know, you want to make a change. We're going to help you. We're going to get you through it. You know, I think that needs to be the foundation. That positivity, which you said, needs to be the foundation of trying to make that change. But it is an excuse that you haven't got time, because it takes a lot of hard work to do that damage.
I call it on par thinking, par being PAR, meaning positive and realistic as well. And it needs somebody sometimes outside of yourself to tell you whether your expectations are realistic or unrealistic. Yeah. And I know that you do that because you've got many, many years in this game. You're a bit like me, is that we're almost like psychic, because we can sort of suss out where the person is, you know, and then we can guide them from that point there, you know.
And there's different ways, Joe, you know, there's many different personalities of me when I'm training people. You know, there's some people that need that sort of military direct form. There's some people that need me to be the bad guy. Sometimes now and then I've got to be that horrible bad guy that's overbearing and almost abusive to people looking in. But I've got to be that to imprint that positive attitude. There's some that you just connect with straight away. There's some that need easing it in because they have low sort of life skills or low confidence. You know, there's many different personality traits that, as a trainer, a clinician, a medical practitioner, you know, that you need to take. But it's okay to have people like you and me in your life for the hour, but you need to connect with people outside that is going to keep that coherence, keep that consistency up. Because one problem I find, Joe, is that I mean, I'm a lot blunter now with clientele that come through the door. You know, you can be really, you know, really on the ball for almost 2 weeks, doing really, really well, bump into some absolute idiot who just throws toxicity and comes back and you get the wine. Now I'm straight away like, listen, shut up. I don't want to hear it. Let's get you back into the game. There's a lot of people that, like, you get to 2 weeks and then it's like being pushed back because they bumped into old friends or old, you know, that created old habits. And then you restart again and you go back and you restart again. So I find that, you know, having good trainers and clinicians is fantastic, but you really do. If people are toxic in your life, which I'll be honest, 9 times out of 10, the reason you're in this situation is because you are in an environment there that is toxic. You know, you need to change sometimes, not just exercise, not just sustenance and you know, what you're doing, but the people around you to allow for that change.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that we unconsciously or subconsciously or below the level of our consciousness, we react and respond to environmental cues. And most of the time we don't know this. So you're quite right. If you're trying to give up drinking, for example, right, it's probably not a good idea to go into the pub and just drink orange juice. And I can, like, this is my experience, this, right? Yeah. Because, you know, the head says, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going orange for the rest of the time. And I always remember when I was trying to get off the drink, I'd be in the pub, I'd be drinking orange and lemonade or lime and soda or something like that. And somebody would say to me, Joe, we're a man short on the pool table now. We need somebody to fill in. Will you fill in? Well, me bottle would go, right? And as soon as I got into a stressful situation, the thought was, I need a few drinks to steady my nerves. Jay, it happened so many times. They say, if you don't want a haircut, don't go into the hairdressers. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the other thing is as well, here's the emotional thing as well. Sometimes people live in toxic environments at home, right? And it's bloody difficult, right, to actually turn your back on the negativity that's at home to say, hang on, my health and well-being is more important now than your negativity, right? And I'm not trying to cause trouble here, because you can't please all the people all the time. So you might as well please yourself first and foremost, because if you please yourself and your health gets better, then you're a better person to live with. You become more attractive. You know what I mean? Sometimes new vistas open up for you because your attraction then draws in different people. You know, that's the secret of attraction to me, you know, is that what you give out, you get back. So if you're always constantly giving out negativity, you will draw to you more negative situations and your health will suffer as a consequence. Jay, how do I know this? Because this has been the story of my life. I stick with the winners now. I am not interested in who's doing what with who. I couldn't care, because my health and my well-being and my emotional state has become more important than anything else at all. Yeah. Right. And that might sound selfish, mate, but it's not. It's about me caring for me. And for the first time in a long time, being totally honest with what I want from the level of my heart and my soul and my spirit.
But it makes you happy. So bringing it sort of to an end now on the sort of 4th emergency service, I feel that education is going to be a big thing now. And unfortunately, you know, you'll know as well, being academia, how do I say this in a nice way? The whole industry, the whole clinical and sporting industry is diluted with very, very poor experience and very, very poor education. And, you know, the fact that fat has been taken out of people's sustenance and nutrition is almost criminal to me. To me, fat is the most important macronutrient out there. You know, so I feel that it now lies, and I know a lot of trainers off my platform are going to be watching this. It now lies in the fact that if this does turn, if it does become like a 4th emergency service, these 6-week courses are not going to get you through. You're going to lose your job within the industry. You know, it's going to trickle out. And what you need to do if you are a clinician or a trainer is you consistently need to be in some type of academic, some type of education, even if it's a CPD, to then help and give out some quality information to the community and the public and the clients that you're working with. You know, and that's something I want to do. And, you know, I might fling some ideas across to you, actually, Joe, about providing some local CPDs in the area to try and it's too diluted, the sporting industry, and it needs to be that sort of clinical fusion, you know, with a sport application to try and help people, because there's the clinical side, which is saying you've got to do this and this is how physiology works, and then there's the sporting side that's saying cut out all the fat and reduce protein and decrease calories, and what we're going to do is we're going to absolutely smash that, and they're just so conflicting at the minute. And when I'm saying, you know, we've got to go and learn about nutrition, we've got to change our life, and we've got to try and, you know, go and do exercise. But then they're both conflicting. They're both fighting each other at the minute now, the clinical and the sporting world. And at some point, there has to be this fusion to help us get out of this sort of unhealthy rut that we seem to be in these days.
Jay, I am not in any way, shape or form opposed to medical intervention at all. If it's used in the right amount, at the right time, for the right condition, okay, for the right length of period as well, for the right period of time, you know, because obviously medications themselves can cause toxicity in the body. What I really don't like either is the use of preservatives and sweeteners and all that. And I'm only talking from my personal lived experience now, because anything, in my view, that aligns you back to your essential nature. So we need natural resourcefulness, both nature from the outside and nature from the inside. They need to conspire together to create a healthy body and a healthy mind and a healthy spirit and everything else. You know, it's got to come from deep within the individual, because that's where the courage to say no to people who are negative, to turn their backs on negativity and to induce this more positive aspect. That's what people need. How do I know? And how do you know? Because we've been there, mate, haven't we? We've been there. Absolutely. We've got the qualifications. We're enthusiastic about learning more all the time because we don't know everything. You know, I feel like every single day I'm only just starting to learn new stuff. I wish that I had have known this and was taught and educated this at the primary school level. You know? And
it should be stated as well that, I mean, I'm not just talking about clinicians and trainers here. It is your absolute responsibility to learn about the system you live with. I know kids, man, that don't even know how to make gravy. What? They don't even know how to peel carrots. It's your responsibility to understand what, I mean, the vitamin D thing and how that affects acute respiratory conditions. It's now being given out to the military now, vitamin D, and it's massive. The paperwork out there, British Medical Journal, the Royal Society, it's out there for you to tap into, and no one knows. And it shouldn't be our responsibility to push you to learn. You should have this responsibility to want to learn about nutrition and want to learn about this system you live in and how you can better yourself. Because if you don't want to learn, you're just monotonously just exercising for the sake of it. You've got to understand why you're doing it and what it's doing to your system. Because again, there's almost that better connection to mind and body then if you understand what it's doing. I find it anyway. I feel a bit of a nerd when I talk about how the system works, but it fascinates me, it turns me on. And then I go out and exercise. I'm like, oh, I'm doing that. I'm changing this.
I agree. And I think theory and practice need to work together, right? It's a collaboration, mate, really. It's where mind and body mind need to understand and cooperate with one another. So in the final questioning of you, how do you want...
We're still there, Joe.
In the final questioning, how do you want this to go forward? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Joe?
I can hear you. Can you see me? I don't know who's gone, whether it's me. I think my connection's still okay. There he is. I think he's coming back now. Let's see. But I think this was one of those spontaneous let's get together, because Jay got in touch this morning. And I think it is important, because I think that we need to just do it. You know, we need to take the action, but we need to be guided sometimes by people outside of ourselves who've been through the process. I think that that's very important. But, you know, theorizing all the time in my view, will not change the way your neural pathways work. I think that you've got to take the theory and at least try it out and put into some sort of action. So sorry, guys, the feed has died my end. Signal seems to have dropped. Thank God for that. I thought my ears were better. So let's just finish this off now. But thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. We'll probably have some more of these in the future. And maybe if I've got some time, I'll work together with Jay to maybe put out some simple suggestions upon how you might be able to help your health and well-being in the future. So, yeah, Jay, if you're listening, mate, thanks very much. Lovely to see you, and hopefully I'll see you in person soon. Bye-bye.